Hey everyone, we have a crazy incident to go over today, and while some of you may have heard a bit about this over the last couple of weeks, perhaps you saw the original viral video that this girl made, I want to dive into the whole case today and all of the facts so far. There have been some wild swings in public opinion over this incident, and the back and forth game of information warfare is super intriguing to me, but the story from my perspective, after doing all the research I did, is a little more complicated, a little more nuanced than most people are acknowledging, and I'm very interested in what you folks will make of all this. There's one facet of this case, for instance, that's almost undiscovered, but more on that in a little bit. Our story begins the morning of Sunday, March 10th at exactly midnight, so only technically the morning, really, as far as like going out and partying goes, it's the night before, but a young woman named Julia Reel, 22, and her friend, who has remained unidentified, are visiting a restaurant and bar called the Hubbard Inn in Chicago. Now, according to Julia, in a viral video she posted to TikTok shortly after this incident supposedly occurred, she was grabbed, pushed, and even thrown down a flight of stairs by one of the Hubbard Inn's security guards that night, or I guess the morning, technically, but she posts this video on TikTok speaking on what happened to her, and it went very viral. It got millions of views. And keep in mind, these are some really serious allegations, right? Like, Julia isn't just alleging that someone was rude or a little rough on her and her friend, or was, being racist or something like that. She's saying she was violently attacked and pushed down a flight of stairs, not once, mind you, but twice. So if these allegations were true, that would mean huge trouble for Hubbard Inn, and since people believed her story, at least at first, Hubbard Inn was bombarded with calls and messages and social media posts and bad reviews on Google and Yelp. We know how this goes, right? The business was essentially ripped apart for this on the internet because of this story time that she posted to TikTok. But then, something happened that changed the entire trajectory of this story and shifted the opinions of countless netizens who had been following this story in what I can only classify as an absolutely brilliant PR move. See, Hubbard Inn actually also has a TikTok account, and it's not like they made it for this whole debacle. They've been posting relatively consistently since all the way back in August of 2022. So whoever runs this account for the business undoubtedly also saw Julia's story going madly viral and the thousands upon thousands of people who, as a result, were tagging Hubbard Inn and demanding an explanation. Anyway, they decided to fight back on the same platform that the controversy was born on, and they made their own TikTok video in response. And this short video would prove so effective, such a devastating Uno reversal, that Julia Reel would immediately delete all of the videos on her own TikTok account, including the original that blew up with her story. This is the counter-narrative that Hubbard Inn built in response, published on March 13th and still up on their TikTok account right now.
So they are grabbing us immediately. So they are grabbing us immediately. They don't even give us a chance to walk out on our own. I'm immediately grabbed by this man, and he's grabbing my arm, he's pushing me, he's manhandling me, and what is going on? What is the issue here? Why are you guys kicking us out? Why are you screaming at us? And also, why are you grabbing me and manhandling me and dragging me, using my bag to pull me out? I'm just pushed down. He sends me flying down the staircase. hysterical at this point. I think I start to kind of yell, scream back at him, kind of push back at him, and he takes me a second time and shoves me again and sends me flying down the rest of the staircase. It was the craziest experience I've ever been in. It was completely and utterly ridiculous how much it escalated.
So this video is pretty damning for Julia Real's narrative, right? The footage appears to show Julia and her friend being calmly, even I'd say politely, escorted out of the building, with 3 intervals of camera footage showing calm and not at all violent behavior from all involved. Nothing like the chaotic and frightening scene that Julia had painted. As I mentioned, this led to Julia removing all of her videos. But then, a new video went up on her account on March 16th. Only it wasn't her this time. There was no story time, but the law firm that she had hired to represent her, Corboy and Demetrio, which, by the way, is not a cheap law firm. This must have been mommy and daddy's money, right? So this got pretty serious pretty quickly. And once again, a new narrative was built. Let's check it out. And I'll read this aloud for our listening audience out there. So this is the Corboy and Demetrio statement. Corboy and Demetrio has been retained by Miss Real to investigate the facts that led to her injuries at Hubbard Inn. While the investigation into this incident is ongoing, our initial investigation has revealed facts entirely contrary to the misleading narrative provided on social media by Hubbard Inn. What Hubbard Inn fails to mention in its self-serving post is that the area where Miss Real suffered her injuries was not videotaped. The portions of the video it released only depict certain locations in the establishment, leading the viewer to conclude that the entire story is told through video footage. But even that story evidenced an approximate 2-minute gap that is unaccounted for in the released videos. It is undisputed that Miss Real sustained a concussion and presented to the hospital with visible lacerations and other evidence of significant injury. Every patron of an establishment expects to be treated with dignity and respect, especially by staff such as bouncers whose sole purpose is to protect customers, not harm them. In the end, the justice system is well equipped to resolve this dispute. Respectfully, we urge the public to hold off on a rush to judgment and or victim shaming until all of the evidence is presented in a court of law. Julia's legal team here alleges a few things, right? First, they point out that some discrepancies exist within the timestamps of the provided security footage. They allege that the actual area where Julia was hurt was not included in the released footage, which shows a bathroom hall, a flight of stairs, and then the entrance. And to speak on this part, when I looked into Hubbard Inn a little bit, I noticed that they're actually a 3-floor establishment with a nightclub up top on the 3rd floor, a bar on the 2nd floor, and a bar on the 1st floor. And that even the 1st to 2nd floor stairwell, importantly, has 3 technical flights of stairs. And only the 3rd is shown in the video, so there was just objectively quite a bit of stairwell that was not recorded. Second, and importantly, they allege that Julia presented herself to the hospital with visible lacerations, a concussion, and, quote, other evidence of significant injury. I looked into this part too, and what I found was a Chicago Sun-Times article about this whole debacle that confirms that Julia was indeed at the hospital after the incident, and also filed an actual police report on the incident from said hospital, which would mean police witnesses to any visible alleged injuries and a legal written record by said police of those injuries. Now, yes, it's entirely true that she could have sustained injuries that night from something other than what she alleged, but that seems relatively unlikely, right? That seems weird. Like, that would be a pretty wild coincidence, or she was just super, like, wasted and maybe just fell. I don't know. But this does mean that there was a police report and therefore a legal record of her being at the hospital and probably of whatever injuries she walked in with. So this is released on her TikTok account on March 16th. And then on March 18th, we got the next major development because Hubbard Inn filed a lawsuit. And the lawsuit seems to fill in a lot of the gaps in what was going on that evening, at least from the perspective of Hubbard Inn. I actually have it right here. It's 7 pages long and it's full of interesting information. So let's go through this real quick and see what we can glean. And I will just say, the way this court document is presented is kind of hilarious to me. Like, there's a ton of, like, snark in here, and just the whole thing struck me as very unlawyerly. But okay, let's dive into this. We learn in the nature of the action segment at the beginning that Hubbard Inn reached out to Julia several times privately and asked her to take this video down, and only decided to go through with the lawsuit because of her non-response, which they took as a refusal to do so. They also mention, key to the lawsuit here, that there were tangible damages resulting from her allegations, with, quote, group cancellations. Later on, they say that there were at least 12 groups that canceled because of this, negative comments on Yelp, negative voicemails, and even violent threats made against the staff, unquote. Okay, so moving on to the factual allegations segment, we learn quite a bit. Because we're all wondering, right, how this whole thing at the bar even started. Like, why was she being kicked out in the first place? Where was she being escorted from? And in this segment here, the business alleges that the two women were kicked out for becoming, quote, abusive towards a staff member in the second floor bathroom. So there was a waitress, I suppose, because it probably wasn't a guy in the women's restroom, who they were being nasty to in the bathroom of the second floor, the Blue Violet Cocktail Lounge, and security was called to escort them out. She says in her original video that she was dragged, grabbed, and manhandled while leaving the bathroom and through the hallway. She then says that security pulled her to the top of the stairs and then shoved her down the top flight of stairs, sending her, quote, flying down the staircase. She then says that halfway down those stairs, she was then shoved again, sending her, quote, flying down the rest of the staircase, where she allegedly slammed her head into the ground. So if we go and we map her out in her path from the second floor bathroom to the entrance, we can see footage of the bathroom hall, right? And that seems to completely debunk what she said about being dragged and manhandled. It looks like she was very uneventfully and calmly escorted out with no physical contact whatsoever. Seems safe to say that those allegations were shown to be false here. Next, we have the stairs, and we can only see part of the stairs in the video, but what we can see is that she is, again, very calmly and uneventfully being led down. There's absolutely no sign whatsoever of any struggle or physical aggression either taking place here or having taken place a moment before. No one seems aggressive or agitated or hot and bothered, and it certainly doesn't depict her being thrown down the stairs and hitting her head on the floor. So that looks like, again, a slam dunk debunk right there, and at this point enough of her narrative has been shown false by the footage that it throws everything she said into question, or that there was even violence at all. Right? And this is why the internet turned against Julia's narrative and embraced Hubbard Inn's. But since this is The Reckoning, it's also important to look at this case from all angles. And there are some things that most people have missed here. One in particular that I found very interesting. First and foremost, to play devil's advocate here, there are some things we should acknowledge are true. 1. Hubbard Inn is part of a major company with an incredible legal team, and they've done an excellent job at narrative crafting and controlling this story. They've been so extensive with their narrative crafting that Julia's original video, her complaint video that blew up, is completely scrubbed from the internet. Seriously, I looked far and wide for this original video. I'm not just not showing it to you guys because I don't want to add the context. I can't find it. I'm looking on TikTok, I'm on Reddit, I'm on Twitter, but all I can find and all that any of the major publications are using and covering this story are not her video, but Hubbard's response video. Every single publication that made a story about this, the video they include is Hubbard's narrative. So their spin on this, their narrative, is what everyone everywhere who has looked into this story at all has been seeing. Now, right or wrong, that's some incredible narrative control. But that doesn't really speak to whether they're right or wrong. Two, we obviously have to take pieces of evidence given here, like the company's interviews with staff and reviews of their own security footage, with a grain of salt. And I only say this because I saw so many netizens presenting these as proof, or I guess hard evidence, in favor of Hubbard's side. But obviously we can't trust a company, we can't take them at their word when they say that they investigated themselves and found no wrongdoing. Another thing to note here, worth pointing out, that these bouncers would almost certainly know where the security cameras are posted within this establishment, and if they were aware of that, they'd probably only do something wrong, or the kind of violence that they've been accused of here, when they were out of the camera's visual periphery. Just something to keep in mind. But it's number 3 that really has me stumped. See, I stumbled across something that essentially everyone who covered this missed. A little-known video on a little-known TikTok account, a video with only 600 likes, posted by a young man named Malik. See, Malik saw Julia's original video, and that video spoke to him because, according to Malik in his own video on March 13th, something very similar also happened to him at the hands of the supposedly overly violent security at Hubbard Inn.
So first off, I just want to say I'm so sorry that happened to you. That is really traumatizing to go through, but I personally understand your experience because in October of 2023, so last year, like the same instance happened to me. My friend, she actually commented on your video, but I come to work like, the weekend after, and like I'm just distraught. I still have the scarring. It's a little bit better now, but you can see there, and like right here I had a black eye. But like the same altercation kind of happened with the bouncers at Hubbard Inn in Chicago. Like I go outside to ask a question about something, about a refund basically. It was a part of a bar crawl, and we already paid for one of my friend's tickets, but he paid at the door again to get in. So I was just trying to ask the security guards, the bouncers, like, yeah, can we talk to someone? Because I just want to see if we can get a refund for like him having paid to get in. From that question led up to them putting their hands on me first, choking me, body slamming me, dragging me across the floor. Like at this point, I'm trying to defend myself because I'm getting attacked by not just one, but like 4 different security guards. And yeah, it was like the craziest thing I had experienced. Like never before had something like that happen to me. I filed a police report. I didn't go to the hospital, but basically I'm just happy that you're sharing the story because it's just something that they need to correct, because now like this is the second time that I know personally now of an instance where this is taking place at the Hubbard Inn in Chicago, and it's just like, it's not right. And like I said, I still have scarring from something that happened in October. So I should have done more. I hope you get justice for them pushing you down a flight of stairs. Like that's ridiculous. And no training or measures to de-escalate a situation should ever involve you putting your hands on a guest. So like, I really do hope you get justice for it. And I'm going to look more into it now because again, my face is never going to look the same because of the bouncers at the Hubbard Inn. So,
and after everything came out and it was shown via the security footage that she was probably at the very least partially lying and exaggerating about what happened here, some of the TikTok users who had found his video started leaving comments about how Malik was eating crow after this woman's story had been shown to be false. But here's the thing. Unlike Julia, Malik brought the receipts.
Y'all need to stop calling me a liar because I didn't like
I don't mind my glasses.
And I obviously can't be sure about this, but that guy looks pretty familiar. A big bald black guy with a giant beard.
So this is after, and I had filed the police report, but at this point, like, my friend, she has her phone, we're trying to just get evidence. So this is a picture with the timestamp and the location.
You're in a whole different bar. I'm trying to talk to that guy right there. He should not be pushing me. That's not his job description. It's not his job description. I'm not trying to have problems with him. I'm trying to get it. I'm not even amped up. He's the one that's pushing me. Alright. Can I tell you what I'm trying to get past? I already got it.
So the manager did give me his card, and I blacked out his number, but he gave me his card because he said he witnessed it all, and I think he also thought, like, I would take more action. So this is just some of, like, me trying to contact my family. This is me contacting the manager because, like I said, one of the bouncers tried to steal my phone. And then I had just left a review because at this point, I had already kind of felt like nothing else was going to come from it, but I did want to share the story. So I left this review on their website. Somebody did get back to me.
And after I saw this, mind you, I was almost completely sold on Julia being a total liar here before I started my deep dive research, and on Hubbard deserving a full exoneration in the public eye. I wasn't so sure anymore, and that's especially after I started scrolling through the comments on his videos and seeing other TikTok users sharing their stories about the overly violent bouncers at Hubbard Inn. This user said, "Oh wow, these comments are not it. Anyone who's been to Hubbard Inn, any of these clubs, bars on Hubbard, knows that those bouncers are overly aggressive for no reason. I'm so sorry this happened to you." Another said, "He's not Julia, he has proof, and this black man needs justice. I believe him. The security guard he recorded was absolutely aggressive to me this weekend for absolutely no reason." I actually found several such comments, enough to find it weird. Because we have to acknowledge, right, that there are pieces of her being escorted out that we can't see. We have to acknowledge the bouncers almost certainly knew where the cameras were and what areas they recorded. We have to acknowledge that the released security footage was hand-selected by the company that was trying to exonerate itself. We have to acknowledge that Malik's evidence, unlike Julia's, seems to be very cut and dry. And we have to acknowledge that Hubbard Inn, despite tagging Malik in their response video to Julia for some reason, that's weird, has not responded to or even touched on Malik's own allegations, which it's not like this happened forever ago. He was saying this happened at the end of last year, and that seems weird. Ultimately, on balance, I'm really not sure what to make of all of this information, but I'm really excited to see what you all come up with in the comments section. I think I'm still inclined ultimately to believe that Julia was grossly over-exaggerating at the least and blatantly lying at the worst, and that she probably was being spiteful against the business because she didn't like being escorted out. She was probably super bratty and rude to whatever waitress was in the bathroom with her and felt embarrassed. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that the company's wicked sharp narrative control, Malik's story, the other testimonials in the comments, and the discrepancies in what we can and can't see from the released footage are enough to make me unsure. They are. Luckily, we won't have to speculate for too terribly long because the court battle starts in late May, and we will of course be covering that here on The Reckoning as long as it's public. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Please like and subscribe if you did. Join us over on r/reckoned on Reddit to submit story requests, video footage, or just to goof off with us. Okay, that's it for me. I'll see you next time.